this live video where I'll be speaking about the H2B visa and how the H2B visa really is for employees. So you can learn in this video of the process of how I and you can come over to the United States from someone in another country to come here and work and live temporarily on this visa. And this will be an opportunity here while I am live for you to ask any questions. So I'm opening up that question box to answer some of your questions live because I know I get quite a lot of messages and I just personally don't have the time to respond to every single one. So this is an amazing place and time for you to ask any questions in the question box below. So I will be speaking a little bit of my experience, and any questions that come up, do feel free to ask them. So, my H2B visa journey started in 2018. I was in Ireland and I just came back from traveling for a couple of months and was looking for a job opportunity. And I actually got offered a job to be interviewed on this H2B visa to come and work and live in Florida. So for me, my process started with having an interview with a recruiter, and I passed that interview. So then the recruiter set me up for an interview with the employer, so someone from the HR department in that job that would be hiring me to see if I was a match for their job opportunity. I actually passed that interview also. So soon after that, I had a meeting day with my recruiter and with some other people who would also be going on this program. And they gave us some information and let us know of now what the process would consist of, that we would have embassy appointments, that they were going to help and guide us through that process. We would have to fill out an ESTA visa, which is a visa that we could, legally to America. It's a tourism visa, but you can enter for up to 2 years. And then obviously my status for visa would be approved also. So it was a process of filling out much paperwork. I was lucky to have that support as well. And then soon, so this was in about August time. So in October, I got my passport with my H2B visa inside of it, and I got my flight booked soon after that. All by my flight was booked by my employer. Because on this visa, your employer provides your transport to go over to the States, and off I went. So once I got to the airport, actually in Ireland, I was met with like 50 other people. So there was like literally 50 other Irish people who were coming over to work on this visa as well. So it was really great to get to know a lot of people. And then we met at the apartment where we would be living, and we were met with someone, a representative from our work, from our new employer, and our employer actually rented out these apartments for us to stay in. We would still be paying for them out of our paychecks, but they took care of that. Apologies, I have some dogs here. They took care of all of that. And then so it started. I got to meet everyone, get house in my apartment, which was with 6 different people. So we had 2 people per room, and it was really great just to get to know everyone. And then after that, we soon had our training day. So our first training day, where we got to tour our new place of employment where we would be working, and we got to have some training of how they want us to be as an employee, and we got our uniforms, and we went through some basic trainings. They also helped us to set up our bank accounts and any other paperwork, and also to answer any questions that we had in that time as well, just to really ease us into the process. And then some weeks of after some weeks of training, we um, then started our job. And, it was a lot of fun, a good season. I just got a question. Your connection isn't working very well. Is there a way to oh, here, I got a question. Is there a way to stay legally after finishing H2B visa? Do companies hire staff to stay, or do you have to apply for another status? Okay, great question. So yes, there is a way to stay legally after the H2B visa. There is actually a couple of ways to stay legally, and I love that you asked legally in this question as well. That's always the best way to do it, the only way that you really want to do it. So after finishing your H2B visa, so let's say your contract was for about 8 months long, and let's say your contract ends in May 23rd, just as a date. So May 23rd is really the date that you should be leaving the country. You have a couple of days to, stay and get your flights and sort everything out and then go home. But if you did want to stay, it's something that you would have to plan in advance. So if your end of contract day was May, in say January, you would like to, it would be best to start looking for employers for someone who can give you a new contract after your contract is ending in May. So someone who can hire you in May. So you can work for them on this H2B visa. So make sure that they are an employee who can hire H2B staff, and they start processing this, let's say, a couple of months before your contract ends, so everything will run smoothly for you. This is actually what I done. So when I was in Florida, working on the H2B visa, I first came over with a recruitment company called Workaway International, and then my contract ended in May. So I start looking in like December, January for other options of a recruiter that or an employer that could hire me after this, and I found a job actually in Flagstaff. And I found this online. I literally just searched H2B visa extensions, or I searched H2B visa summer jobs. And the reason for searching H2B summer jobs is because on my visa was ending in summer, so it made sense that I would be hired for that summer period, because I still needed to find someone who could hire H2B employees, and that was a temporary basis as well. So that's one way that you can do it. There are also other ways you can change your status when you're on the H2B visa. So if you wanted to change your status to a green card, you could, if you got sponsored, let's say by your employer decided to sponsor you, you could go through a change of status and then that. So I'd recommend have them do it for you, or have a lawyer help you in that process. Another way is to, go through like a marriage or a family-based green card. So if you're already married to someone in the States, or if you already have some family here, you can also go through a change of status while you're in the States and go that way as well. So I hope that answered your question. You refer us to your recruiter. Jira, so my recruiter was actually Workaway International. Now they only work with people from Ireland and the UK. So there are different recruiters in every country, so it really depends on what country that you are in. I know that South Africa also has a Workaway. I know Jamaica has their own recruitment. So it really just depends on what country you're in. And maybe your country does have a recruiter and maybe not. Maybe you're going to have to, go independently on this. But first, you can see if your country has one. So I hope that helped. Yoman, how do we know that the company will really bring us to the US? I had a company that sent a job offer on January and I signed up for it. Yoman, so I'd need to know a little more information so I could really help you on that question, but let me try and answer that anyway. So, how do we know that the company will really bring you to the US? Well, I when I actually first signed up for this visa, I was a little skeptical myself and thought, well, this sounds too good to be true. An employer is going to pay for me to go over to the States, is going to pay for my flights, someone who's going to pay for me to go over here and to live and to work, and who's actually going to then pay me a paycheck on top of that. I thought, what? But once I actually read through that contract, that helped to clarify a lot. So what I would recommend is have them send over some information to you, really read through it, read through the fine print. That's what really helped me. I also had my parents at that time read through that as well, and they helped just show that it was an actual legitimate offer. So I would just do some of your research. Um, yeah, on that one as well. So they sent you a job offer in January and you signed up for it. So who sent you a job offer in January? Was it a recruiter? Was it an employer? Yeah, so I hope that helped, but I would probably need to put some more information on that one. Um, are you going to save this live? Yeah, I'm going to save this live so you can look back on it if you like to after. Um, and okay, Yolman, so replying to, and after they got fully certified and passed the 3 weeks to get the paperwork, they told me that I was not in their process. Okay, well, that sounds like if you're not in their process, like they probably aren't hiring you. That's what it sounds like to me. Um, after they got full certification and passed the 3 weeks to get their paperwork, they told me that I was not in their process. Yeah. So that sounds to me like you're not in the process. Maybe you have some more information that you can add to that. Neve, hey, you're doing a great job. Thank you, Neve. Neve in the chat here is actually my friend who I went traveling with in Europe for a couple of months before I went on this visa. Inspired me to come over and work here, and she actually works on this visa also a year after me because I was 21, which was the required age for me to come and work here, and she was a year younger, so she actually came to come over on this visa also in a different place. It's really cool. What is your biggest challenge in this H2B visa program? The biggest challenge. Okay, so I'm going to go personal on this one. So, probably my biggest challenge was making new friends and leaving them. So I lived and worked in 6 different places on this H2B visa. I stayed out to the full amount of 3 years. So in each place, I made a whole amazing group of new friends who I bonded with over those experiences, people I was living with, people I was working with, friends that I made, relationships that I made. And it can be a little tricky to keep those relationships, and when you have to, or when I chose to, move states every couple of months. That was probably the hardest thing for me, just letting people go in my life and realizing that not everyone's here forever. Some people are just here for a period, or now social media is great so we can keep in contact with them, but we can't necessarily maybe see them all of the time. So that was probably the hardest and the most challenging part of it for me. Do companies hire inexperienced staff? I'm community manager and I don't have experience in hospitality industry. So, yes, they can. But what I would recommend is for you to get a best chance of being employed is to grab some experience now. So if you want to work a part-time job while you're still staying in your job in hospitality, or maybe even work for like a catering company, or some sort of flexible work where you can even work 1 day a week in hospitality or for events, or if you can work even a couple more hours, because that experience will be valued. Because if you think about it from the perspective of an employer who is hiring people to come over and live and work for a temporary period of time where they are in a high season, maybe they don't have like a whole lot of time to really train people who have zero experience in the industry. So for them, it would be more helpful to have people who have some sort of experience, and they will probably be more inclined to hire people who do have some experience because it is going to be easier for them. And I believe when I came over here, my recruitment agency did require that we had at least 3 months experience in the field that we were applying for. So it may not be the case with everyone, but I would suggest, if you can, to just try now to get some experience in that industry. I'm not saying it is not possible for you. Maybe you have worked, in other areas that can translate over to that. But when you are actually getting your visa, you may be asked more questions of why you are going over to work in hospitality. Neve, do you have to come back to your country after the year's visa is up, or can you renew the visa while you were in the country? Question. That's a question I had when I was here as well, and I know a lot of people also have this question. So after the 3 years, um, renew your H2B visa while you were in the country, because the maximum time that you can stay on that visa is actually 3 years. So you are required to go home for a period of time, and you must stay out of the country for a period of time before you can even think to reapply again. So if you stay the full 3 years, I believe you have to stay at home longer before you reapply. Than if you were to perhaps only stay for 2 years, then you would only have to stay out of the country for a shorter period of time before you were to reapply and re-enter. And I know many people will have been on this H2 visa for years and years and years. And what they do is they will say, work for 8 months in one place, go home for 4 months, come back and work for 8 months, go home. Or you could say work for 2 years, go home for a couple of months, come back, work for 2 years. If you say 3 years, you will have to stay at home for a little longer. But there is an option to actually stay in the country, yes, after you're on the H2B, but then you would probably have to change your status over to another visa. So whether you were going to go through visa, or if you were to get sponsored by a green card and you were going to go through that change of status, that's another option if you did want to stay. Otherwise, for the most part, then you would have to go home and have to reapply. Um, yeah, so just while I wait for to see if there's any more questions that come in. Oh, yes, there is. Is it better to go to the embassy by your own or through an agency? So you would be going to the embassy by yourself anyway. Um, yeah, you would, when you go to the embassy appointments, your agency may um, have recruited you to go and work on this visa, but um, they will not be going to the embassy with you. They maybe, I don't know, maybe it is that they do, but the embassy is just a one-on-one interview with you and with someone else, and it's so they're only going to be asking you the questions regardless of if you were to go by yourself or through an agency. It wouldn't really matter that much. They're still going to ask you most likely the same questions. It's still going to be just you, and some of those questions are going to be, what are your intentions with going over to the States, proof of your job, proof of your, say, flights back home, why you want to work over here, how long you plan on staying for, um, you know, proof of maybe commitments that you're actually going to come home after this period of time. And yeah, some of those general questions they're probably going to ask you. There's some of the questions that they asked me. And it's usually a short and sweet interview, but I know not everyone does get approved. So it is important to, um, you know, be honest and to have your answers and have your intention of not staying illegally in the country is one of the big things that they do not want to hear. So that's a reason why you may not pass an embassy appointment if you are to, stay or seem like you want to stay illegally. That's not a reason why someone would want to give that to you. So, um, which position requires more of you? Front desk, housekeeper, etc. Interesting question. Requires more of you. So, by more of you, do you mean more like work hours, more energy? Um, so I'll answer that as best as I can. So I've actually worked as a front desk, as a housekeeper, as a server, yeah, I've worked on like many different areas. So from my personal experience, working in front desk, usually have less hours. I was working 40 hours a week while servers were working, 40 plus hours a week. They were getting some overtime, so they actually did end up getting more pay than me. However, um, for me, they were working longer hours. I was working shorter hours, but I did actually get quite a lot less pay. Um, and then as a housekeeper, that required more physical work, I would say, because I'm moving, I'm making beds, I'm vacuuming rooms, and I would say the hours were similar to what I worked as a front desk, so say 40, maybe a little bit more. So it really just depends on what you're looking for. Like, are you looking to work long hours and get more money, or are you looking to work shorter hours and have more time to yourself? Or are you looking to, gain more experience in a front desk so you can apply for other jobs when you go home? Or, do you prefer to work as a housekeeper and have your earphone in and listen to podcasts? Like, it just depends on what you like, and um, that sort of thing. But definitely front desk usually I feel like is shorter hours, and server and housekeeper maybe slightly longer. You may be more opportunities for overtime, so for more pay in those areas. But that's personally speaking from my experience. Is it better to go? Sorry. I have sent a lot of emails to employers, but so far didn't get a positive response. I was a J1 last summer, but my employer didn't get A or B. With what is due date to apply for this summer? Okay, so you've sent a lot of emails to employers, but you haven't got a positive response. Let's start with that part. So there's really a lot of things to take into factor when you are applying for this visa. Time is really, really important because let's say that the where you are applying to is, for example, a country club in Florida, and their high season where they need staff is from October to May. Now, the reason why they need staff is because they cannot already find enough willing and able American workers to work for them. Now, if you are applying in, let's say, December, well, that's no one's probably going to see your email or respond to it, because right now they do not need employees at that time, because they already have their whole full season of employees, and their time, energy, and focus is most likely spent on other tasks and actually running their business. So they may not even be looking to go through resumes, or to look through, or even consider hiring more employees until the end of their season, May, let's say. Well, then they will start to then do the recruitment process again and start to do the paperwork on their end, so then they can start to hire employees to work for them. So timing is really important. And then also on your resume, I would say, for some better chances to make sure that you are being responded to, as well as the time, is to make sure that you have like the required information on it. So your name, your number, your like Zoom or your Skype. So for interviews, for convenience, make sure it's short and precise. So like, you don't want to be sending someone over like an essay. Like, keep it to 1 page, maximum 2 pages, and have the relevant experience. So if you are looking on the site for the employer that you want to work, the company that you want to work for, and you see that their open position is for servers, and the required experience is that you've worked a year in a service industry, and that you are good with speaking English, and that you have good communication skills and are self-motivated, well, then check in, is that something that you actually have? And if it is, make sure that you are stating it on your actual resume and keeping it nice and short and simple. Just really think about the employer that is looking through that, and keep it as simple as possible for them. So I hope some of that does help for you. Is it true that the companies in a randomization get the visa approval almost for all of their applicants? I'm not quite sure what that question means. Maybe you can rephrase it a little. Can switch from H2B to J1 visa. How can you do that? So Ronald, actually, I know many people who have done it the opposite way around, who have been here on a J1 visa, and have switched to a H2B. So it would be more likely that you can do it that way. From my experience, when I was working in Florida in one of the clubs, they hired a lot of J1s to come over and work for them. And then what happened was the whole virus in the world that came. So it was quite difficult to get staff or to get more staff. Pause, I'm just going to take some water. It was quite hard for them to get some more staff from overseas, obviously, in to fly in at that time. So they kept on their J1s and they changed them over to H2B. Apologies. Oh, I guess this is what happens when you talk for a while. And I got my ginger and lemon water. Yeah, so I've heard it go the opposite way around, from J1s, go through change of status and get changed to H2Bs, but I have not heard of it go from H2B to J1. Because I know J1 has some requirements that you do have to have gone through college education, and you're here on like a trainee process, so it's totally different to H2B, whereas H2B is non-skilled. You do not have to go gone through university, and you do not have to be like a certain age. So there's definitely some differences on the visa. So I'm not quite sure if you can go from J1 to H2B, but from H2B to J1, but I do know that you can go from J1 to H2B in that order. Do you think housekeeping is less stressful because you don't need to socialize with people as much? Maybe that's good, right? Okay, that's funny. Um, okay, well, you definitely don't have to socialize with people as much. That is true. So it depends on maybe your personality then. So do you enjoy socializing with people? Because if you do enjoy socializing with people, obviously, if you are working as a server, you are going to be for number one, working with your coworkers as a team player, speaking with your employers, and then when your shift starts, you are going to be, nonstop talking to customers, speaking to them, making sure they're having a pleasant experience. So if you are looking for maybe a job with less socialization, well then of course, housekeeping, because in my experience with housekeeping, I got to go into my own world. It was a totally different experience because I got to work with my earphones and my headphones on. So I was listening to podcasts, listening to music, while I was really just going through the rooms. It was a lot of physical work. I was like, my body was exhausted by the end of the day, but I did not have to interact or speak with a lot of people. Just when I came in the morning, I was talking in, I'd speak to my coworkers, I'd speak to my employer to see what work they had, and then they may call the room every so often to let me know that another room needs to be done, or guests may have some questions, or ask me for some extra towels here and there. But for the most part, no, you don't talk as much to people. In my experience, housekeeping in like, as being a server. So anyway, I'm going to end this live in the next 2 minutes. So if there is any more questions, now is the opportunity, just because I do want to keep this to 30 minutes. I don't want to make it too much longer than that. So I will say with that, thank you all for everyone who has come in and who has asked questions and has been part of this. And to let you know that this will be a weekly thing. So every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern time zone, which is my time zone here in Florida, I will be going live. So obviously 12 p.m. my time may be different your time, so you can convert that. And if you do want to be notified when I am going live, you're best to be on my email list. So you can just message me over on my Facebook group, which will be, I'll post a link of it in the description box below, or on Instagram with your email, and then I can add you to that list as well to be notified when all of these things are upcoming as well. And this is the best place for you to be able to ask any questions, because my inboxes, unfortunately, I don't have the time to respond to every single message. So this is the best way for me to respond to your messages, more fun for me to talk on video as well, and then it benefits more people. So I'll answer my last two questions here that I see before I close out. Do you think Oh, last one question. My friend is on his second extension in the US. Would be a problem if he goes back to Jamaica this year? Be hard for him to come back. No, he shouldn't have a problem to if he was to go back and come again on another petition, because really people can stay up to 6 extensions, which is what I done. I know many people who have stayed for 5 extensions, who've stayed for 2, 4, 6, and who have gone home and who have come back on this visa. I would say when it starts to get maybe a little tricky would be if you do stay for the full 3 years, because you stay for 6 seasons, you do have to stay home for a little period of time. But if he's only been here for his second season, I really don't see it as being anything to be concerned or worry about. He should not have an issue when he has to come back. He will just have to wait until the next season. So, for example, if his season ends he's on a second season, if his season ends in October, well, then he'll have to stay home until possibly May, until they're hiring again. Or if his season ends in May, he may have to wait until, let's say, for example, October. So he'll stay at home a couple of months until the next hiring season, but he shouldn't have an issue with that. So there you are. Thank you all, and I will say goodbye now, and I will see you all in my other videos if you do want to look through them, and I'll see you all here again next week live this same time again. Bye. Thank you all.